I have over 30 books that I cannot wait to talk to you guys about. These are books that are coming out this summer that I either cannot wait to read and I will absolutely be reading them, or these are books that are kind of on my radar as potential reads. So let's talk about them. Hi everyone, it's Rhonda and welcome to a new video. And as I mentioned in my intro, I have a list of over 30 books that are coming out this summer that I cannot wait to talk to you guys about. I have romances, I have thrillers, I think I have a couple of fantasies, I have some cozy mysteries, I have a little bit of everything. So we're just going to jump right in. And the day that I'm filming this is actually the beginning of May. And I think when this video comes out, it's probably going to be either Monday or Tuesday, the week of the 12th. So I'm going to start with May, and I'm going to talk about the books that are coming out May 13th on through the end of August. And we're going to start with No One Was Supposed to Die at This Wedding by Catherine Mack. This is the second book in the Vacation Mystery series, and I read the first book, which was called Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies, and I absolutely loved it. So I definitely want to read this book when it comes out. And the little blurb just says that this series is following author Eleanor Dash as she goes from wedding guest to murder mystery investigator at her best friend's wedding on Catalina Island. And I think this is going to be perfect for the summertime because it's on an island and it's at a wedding. So I'm definitely going to be reading this one. As it says, it is a cozy mystery and it's the second book in that Vacation Mystery series. Moving on to the week of May 20th, I have a couple of books. The first one is The Love Haters by Catherine Center. I actually read an art copy of this last month and I really loved it, and I would absolutely recommend you guys read it, especially if you're looking for a good beachside or poolside romance, or if you're a Catherine Center fan. This is a rom-com. The synopsis on this one reads, Katie Vaughn has been burned by love in the past. Now she may be lighting her career on fire. She has two choices: wait to get laid off from her job as a video producer, or at her co-worker Cole's request, take a career-making gig profiling Tom Hutchison, a Coast Guard rescue swimmer in Key West. The catch, Katie's not exactly qualified. She can't swim, but she fakes it that she can. But paradise is messier than it seems as Katie gets entangled with Hutch, the most scientifically good-looking man she has ever seen, but also a bit of a love hater. Along with his colorful Aunt Rue and his rescue Great Dane, she gets trapped in a lie or two. Swim lessons, helicopter flights, conga lines, drinking contests, hurricanes, and stolen kisses ensue, along with chances to tell the truth, to face old fears, and to be truly brave at last. As I mentioned, I really enjoyed this book and I would absolutely recommend it for a summertime TBR. So with this book too, there is a little bit of a negative body image representation, and she just kind of glosses over that. So I think if you have had some serious issues when it comes to, maybe you had a serious eating disorder, or if you had body image issues where you needed to seek help, then maybe not read this because she just kind of glosses over it. She doesn't go into a deep dive. But I think if you are like me, most women have had negative body image issues. And if you're like me, if you didn't seek medical help, you're just one of these people who wishes I didn't have bat wings on my arms, or wishes my thighs weren't as big, things like that, where you didn't need to seek medical help or therapy, then you would probably enjoy this. I think if you do love most Catherine Center books, you'll probably love this too because she sticks with her formula of quirky characters, just a funny, silly, good time. And I really enjoyed it and I would recommend it. Okay, moving on to the second book that's coming out on May 20th that I think you guys should read, and that is Their Double Lives by Jamie Lynn Hendricks. This is a mystery thriller, and this was a good time. I did actually already read this. I got an audio art copy of this, and I gave it 3 stars. I'll go over it more in my wrap-up for the month of May, but I'm going to say go ahead and read it. So this one is about a woman who is kind of struggling. She's living in New York City, and by day she works as a graphic designer, and then a few nights a week she works at a country club as a waitress. Well, she has a dog named, I think it's Murray or Murphy, and he has a brain tumor and needs a really expensive surgery that she cannot afford. Well, out of the blue, one day she gets a letter at her door, and it basically, she is told that they will pay her a lot of money so that she can pay for the surgery if she were to kill this man at the country club who is anonymous. Well, come to find out, the man that she's supposed to kill is her ex-boyfriend. So that is what this book is about. It's a book about double lives, obviously because the name is called Their Double Lives. And it was a good time. I had a great time reading it. Again, this one comes out on May 20th, and that is one I would be recommending to you guys to read, especially during the summertime. And then rounding out the end of May, I have 3 books that are all coming out on May 27th. The first one is It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. I love Annabelle Monaghan's romances. They're closed-door romances, and they are so sweet, and they're paced so well. I have actually already read this one too. I got another art copy through NetGalley on this, and I gave it 4 stars. It was really good. It's a typical Annabelle Monaghan romance, and I loved it. And this is the synopsis. It says, rules for a love story. There are none. It's all a lie. Jane Jackson knows that true love is a lie. Laughter is the only truth. You can't fake a belly laugh. Jane should know. She spent her adolescence as poor Janie Jakes, the barbecue sauce in her braces punchline on America's 5th favorite sitcom. Now she's a creative executive at Clearwater Studios, and she's living by a new mantra. Fake it till you make it. Except she may have faked it too far. Desperate to get her project greenlit and riled up by pompous cinematographer and one-time crush Dan Finnegan, she opened her mouth and a big fat fib fell out. She claimed that Jack Quinlan, hottest pop star of the moment, has promised to write an original song for the soundtrack. Jack may have been her first kiss and greatest source of shame, but she hasn't spoken to him in 20 years. Now Jane must turn to the last man she ever wanted to owe, Dan Finnegan. Because Jack is playing a festival in Dan's hometown on Long Island, and Dan has an in, a week in close quarters with Dan while facing down her past is Jane's idea of hell. Dan just might surprise her. While covering up her lie, can they find something true? This was really, really cute. I love the fact that Jane used to be a child actress. And so this was a really good time. I would recommend it. It's a great summer romance. And then also coming out on May 27th is the 6th book in the Boys of Tommen series called Releasing 10 by Chloe Walsh. And there's only 238 ratings right now, but I'm a little concerned because the average rating right now on Goodreads is 3.44. But as you guys know, the Boys of Tommen series is a book series about a group of friends, a group of kids who go to Tommen College, which is essentially a high school in Ireland. And each of the books in the series are about different people in this friend group. And it looks like this one is about Lizzie Young and Hugh Biggs. This one says, Lizzie Young has always felt she was too much everything. Diagnosed with bipolar at a young age, she never fit in with her family, her friends, her community. Lizzie wants to be accepted and understood, but with few family or friends in her corner, she carries her burdens and her trauma on her own. But when she meets a kind boy on the school bus, things start to look bright for the first time in her life. Hugh Biggs has an old soul and the wisdom of someone far beyond his years. A young man with a sharp mind and a firm code of ethics, he sees something in Lizzie Young that he can't resist. He wants to be her everything and shoulder her burden. And Lizzie wants that too. So it says, and then it says, Lizzie and Hugh's bond seems unbreakable. Their chemistry is electric. Their love is potent. And their connection is soul deep. But even the truest love can be shaken by forces beyond their control. So I have read the first 3 books in this series, and I have enjoyed them. I think they're way too long, and I don't like the serious amount of cussing that's in this. But I do want to continue with the series. I do have books 4 and 5, and I'll get to it eventually. But this one is the 6th book in that series, and again, it comes out on May 27th. And then also on May 27th is an Ali Hazelwood book. It's called Problematic Summer Romance, and it says this is the 2nd book in the Not in Love series. I did not read Not in Love. I'm not going to read Not in Love, but I'm putting this one out there because I know a lot of you are Ali Hazelwood fans. I read The Love Hypothesis last year and really enjoyed it. I DNF'd Love on the Brain. It was not for me. And then I feel like all of her newer books are really incredibly spicy, and I don't like really spicy books, so I have not really picked up another Ali Hazelwood book. But this one, in case you're interested, it says, What is Wrong Meets What Feels Right in This Romance Set in Italy by the New York Times bestselling author of Deep End. Maya Kilgore is 23 and still in the process of figuring out her life. Connor Harkness is 38. Ooh, that is quite an age gap. and says Maya cannot stop thinking about him. It's such a cliche, it almost makes her heart implode. Older man and younger woman. Successful biotech guy and struggling grad student. Brother's best friend and the girl he never knew existed. As Connor loves to remind her, the power dynamic is too imbalanced. Any relationship between them will be problematic in too many ways to count, and Maya should just get over him. After all, he has made it clear that he wants her gone from his life. But not everything is as it seems, and cliches sometimes become plot twists. And it goes on from there, but it sounds like this is just going to be an Italian summer romance with an age gap trope. So if that's what you want to read, it comes out on May 27th. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for the reviews to come in on this and see how spicy it is. But it sounds cute. I don't mind an age gap. I don't like super spicy books. So those are all the books that are coming out in May, and we're going to jump right into June. The very first book that I want to talk about comes out on June 3rd, and that is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I read my very first Taylor Jenkins Reid book, as you guys know, a couple of months ago, and absolutely ate it up. I read the Evelyn Hugo book and loved it, and I definitely want to continue reading her backlist. But this one is called Atmosphere, and I'm excited about this one because it's about women in the space program in the 80s, which I'm from Houston, and I was born in '79, so I am a child of the 80s, and this really speaks my language. It says, Joan Goodwin has been obsessed with the stars for as long as she can remember. Thoughtful and reserved, Joan is content with her life as professor of physics and astronomy at Rice University. I'm very familiar with Rice. And as aunt to her precocious niece, Frances. That is until she comes across an advertisement seeking the first woman scientists to join NASA's space shuttle program. Suddenly, Joan burns to be one of the few people to go to space. Selected from a pool of thousands of applicants in the summer of 1980, Joan begins training at Houston's Johnson Space Center alongside an exceptional group of fellow candidates. Top Gun pilot Hank Redman and scientist John Griffin, who are kind and easygoing even when the stakes are highest. Mission specialist Lydia Danes, who has worked too hard to play nice, warm-hearted Donna Fitzgerald, who is navigating her own secrets, and Vanessa Ford, the magnetic and mysterious aeronautical engineer who can fix any engine and fly any plane. As the new astronauts become unlikely friends and prepare for their first flights, Joan finds a passion and a love she never imagined. In this new light, Joan begins to question everything she thinks she knows about her place in the observable universe. And in December of 1984, on mission STS-LR9, everything changes in an instant. So obviously this is a little bit of a historical fiction, and I can't wait to read this just because it's set in the 80s and it has to do with the space program, and it looks like it's set in Houston too. I have a friend who works for NASA, and she helps with training. So I've actually done a behind the scenes tour at Johnson Space Center, where they have the big pool and the space station submerged underneath that pool, and I've met astronauts. So I'll include some photos here and show you when I went on that tour, but it was really cool. So I cannot wait to read this. I actually will probably be on vacation when this book comes out, so I'll have to pick it up when I get home, but this sounds amazing. All right, the next book that's also coming out on June 3rd that I want to talk about is The Ghostwriter by Julie Clark. This one is a mystery thriller, and it just says ghostwriter Olivia Dumont has spent her entire professional life hiding the fact that she is the only child of legendary horror author Vincent Taylor, famous not only for his novels but for being the prime suspect in the brutal slaying of his siblings. On the brink of financial ruin, Olivia reluctantly agrees to ghostwrite her father's last book, not realizing she will be forced to reckon with the ghosts that live at the center of her family. And really, this one just sounds incredibly interesting. A daughter who's having to ghostwrite her dad's last book. But on Goodreads, it has 911 ratings, and the average score is 4.24. So it has a pretty high rating this early on. This is a book that is definitely on my radar to read. And then also coming out on June 3rd is a contemporary romance called Battle of the Bookstores by Allie Brady. And Allie Brady is a new author for me. I haven't read anything by her, but this one sounded really cute. I'm not going to read the entire synopsis just because it's kind of long, but the blurb says, Rivalry and romance spark when two bookstore managers who are opposites in every way find themselves competing for the same promotion. So this definitely sounds like a workplace rivalry to romance trope, and I do really love those, and this is a book that's definitely on my radar to possibly read in June. And then coming out on the following week of June 10th is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I am eagerly anticipating this. I read my first V.E. Schwab book last year. I read Addie LaRue, loved it. I haven't read anything else by her just because she's been writing mostly YA. So I really wanted to have my next book be an adult novel. And this is a story about hunger, 1532, Santo Domingo de la Calzada. A young girl grows up wild and wily. Her beauty is only outmatched by her dreams of escape. But Maria knows she can never ever be a prize or a pawn in the games played by men. When an alluring stranger offers an alternate path, Maria makes a desperate choice. She vows to have no regrets. This is a story about, oh, okay, so this is, I'm confused. I don't know if these are just different timelines or if this is a book of short stories, but the first paragraph I just read, it says this is the story of hunger, and then it jumps to the year 1827 in London, and it says this is a story about love. And it says the young woman lives an idyllic but cloistered life on her family's estate until a moment of forbidden intimacy sees her shipped off to London. Charlotte's tender heart and seemingly impossible wishes are swept away by an invitation from a beautiful widow, but the price of freedom is higher than she could have imagined. And then it jumps to the year 2019, and it's set in Boston. It says this is a story about rage. College was supposed to be her chance to be someone new. That's why Alice moved halfway across the world, leaving her old life behind. But after an out of character one-night stand leaves her questioning her past, her present, and her future, Alice throws herself into the hunt for answers and revenge. And then it says, this is a story about life, how it ends, and how it starts. But this has over 1,000 ratings so far with an average rating of 4.44. So it sounds like this is going to be a good book, and it sounds like it's going to be something I'm really going to be into. So this is definitely going to be a must read for the summer. And one of my most favorite thriller authors is Riley Sager, and his newest book comes out on June 10th called With a Vengeance. And this one, the initial reviews are not good, but I think people are going into this expecting a typical Riley Sager thriller. And I think if I go into this one expecting like an Agatha Christie-esque cozy mystery, I would enjoy it, because this one sounds like her Murder on the Orient Express. So this one says, one train, no stops, a deadly game of survival and revenge. In 1942, 6 people destroyed Anne Matheson's family. 12 years later, she's ready for retribution. Under false pretenses, Anna has lured those responsible for her family's downfall onto a luxury train from Philadelphia to Chicago, an overnight journey of 14 hours. Her goal? Confront the people who've wronged her, get them to confess their crimes, and deliver them into the hands of authorities waiting at the end of the line. Justice will at last be served. And then apparently her plans get derailed because one of the passengers is murdered. And then it says, as the train barrels through the night, it becomes clear that someone else on board is enacting their own form of revenge, and that they won't stop until everyone is dead. With time running out before the train reaches its destination, Anna is forced to hunt the killer in the midst while protecting the people she hates the most. In order to destroy her enemies, she must first save them, even though it means putting her own life at risk. So again, I think if I go into this expecting kind of a cozy mystery, I'll probably enjoy this one. But I can't wait to read this one. This is Riley Sager is a favorite author of mine. I will absolutely be reading this. And then also coming out on June 10th is Everything's Coming Up Rosie by Courtney Walsh. This is a closed door romance. I read Courtney Walsh books before, and I do really enjoy her stories. They're just a lot of fun. There's no cussing. There's no spicy scenes. It's just very much a sweet romance. But this one says, sometimes what you think you want and what you actually want turn out to be something different. And the synopsis on this is very, very long. It says, Rosie Waterman has wanted to become a working actor, but it hasn't been working out. She apparently loses her apartment and her job on the same day. and she does what she always does, puts herself out there ready to find the next big thing. But a trip home makes her realize that while she's been struggling to make this dream come true, all her friends have become real adults with careers and weddings and babies on the way. Rosie's been at this for years and she has nothing to show for it. But how does she simply let go of her dream? And then from there it just says she gets a job at a retirement community to be the director of a production of Cinderella, which sounds funny. While she's working on that, she's presented with new challenges that's forcing Rosie to learn how to step up and be the leader this fledgling theater troupe needs. The more time she spends with her new cast, the more she begins to rethink what it means to dream big, especially when that big dream hasn't turned out to be at all what she thought it would be. It's not at all what she expected, but could it be exactly what she needs? So this just sounds really sweet and cute. And I do have an art copy of this, so I will be reading this soon. And then another romance coming out on June 10th is Never Been Shipped by Alicia Thompson. I've read 2 books by this author. I read something about Love in the Time of Serial Killers. Did not love that one at all. And then I also read The Art of Catching Feelings, which I absolutely loved. I gave it 4 stars. I couldn't put it down. And with this one, it sounds like it's about a couple of musicians, but it says Micah's relationship to music is complicated. As teenagers, her band took off after being featured on a popular TV show, but the group barely released their sophomore album before breaking up. Now, over a decade later, the band is reuniting for one last performance on a themed cruise, and Micah is determined to learn from her past mistakes, not losing herself in the music and not losing her heart along the way. So this sounds like a fun summer romance just because it's on a cruise ship, and I definitely want to read this one. And then another book coming out on June 10th is a cozy mystery called Welcome to Murder Week by Karen Dukes. And the blurb says, in this delightfully funny and heartfelt new novel from the author of Bittersweet Page Turner, The Last Book Party, an American woman travels to the English countryside when she discovers tickets her late mother had purchased for a murder mystery simulation in a small British town. And then it says, it is a fresh, inventive twist on the murder mystery and a touching portrayal of one daughter's reckoning with her grief, her past, and her own budding sense of adventure. This one just sounds really cute. I've really gotten into cozy mysteries this year. It's just a genre that I've really grabbed onto and I want to read more. And so this one, it only has 133 ratings so far, but the average rating is 4.24. So the initial reviews coming in is pretty good, and it's a book that's definitely going to be on my radar. And then moving on to the next week of June 17th is Ashley Poston's new book called Sounds Like Love. And I absolutely will be reading this one, which is funny because I've only read 3 of her books so far, and I've only really liked one of them, and that was The 7-Year Slip. So my track record is not the best. Her other 2 books of The Dead Romantics and Novel Love Story, I enjoy them. They were fine. They just didn't live up to what I was expecting them to be. But I still want to read this, and I still will be reading this when it comes out. But the synopsis says, a hit-making songwriter and a bitter musician share a startling and inexplicable connection that they'll do anything to shake in the next sparkling magical book from Ashley Poston. So that really didn't tell me a whole lot. Continuing with the synopsis, it says, Joni Lark is living the dream. She's one of the most coveted songwriters in LA, and she can't seem to write. There's an emptiness inside of her, and nothing seems to fill it. When she returns to her hometown of Vienna Shores, North Carolina, she hopes that the sand, the surf, and the concerts at the Revelry, her family's music venue, will spark her inspiration. But when she gets there, nothing is how she left it. Her best friend is avoiding her, her mother's memories are fading fast, and the Revelry is closed. How can she think about writing her next song when everything is changing without her? Until she hears it, a melody in her head, lyricless and half-formed, and an alluring and addictive voice to go with it, belonging apparently to a wry musician with hang-ups of his own. Surely he's a figment of her overworked imagination. But then the very real man attached to the voice shows up in Vienna Shores. He's aggravating and gruff on the outside, nothing like the sweet, funny voice in Joni's head, and he has a plan. They'll finish the song, haunting them both, break their connection, and hope they don't risk their hearts in the process. Because that song stuck in their heads, maybe it's there for a reason. Well, this just sounds cute. It really does. all of Ashley Poston's books have magical realism, and it seems like this has a teeny tiny bit of it, but it just really sounds like a cute book, and it sounds like it's going to be a cute little beach read. Also being released on June 17th is Nikki Erlich's new book called The Poppy Fields. Nikki Erlich wrote The Measure, which I never read. I heard it was really good. But this one, I put this one on my list just because the premise of this book sounded really interesting. It says, what if there were a cure for the brokenhearted? Welcome to the Poppy Fields, where there's hope for even the most battered hearts to heal. Here in a remote stretch of the California desert lies an experimental and controversial treatment center that allows those suffering from the heartache of loss to sleep through their pain and keep on sleeping. After patients awaken from this prolonged state of slumber, they will finally be healed, but only if they're willing to accept the potential shadowy side effects. It says, a high-concept speculative novel about heartache, hope, and human resilience. The Poppy Fields explores the path of grief and healing, a journey at once profoundly universal and unique to every person, posing the questions, how do we heal in the wake of great loss? And how far are we willing to go in order to be healed? So, I mean, this just sounds incredibly interesting, and I do want to read this one. I don't know if I'm going to say I'm definitely going to read it. I'll probably will buy it and put it on my physical TBR to get to eventually. I just don't think I'll get to it this summer. But this one just sounds like an incredibly unique plot that I do want to read. And right now it has over 500 ratings with an average rating of 4.12. So the initial reviews on this is pretty good. And then the very last book on my radar that's coming out on June 24th is Don't Let Him In by Lisa Jewell. I've read her books before. She writes pretty good thrillers, so they're very, very dark. So if you haven't read her before, you have been warned. But this one, it says it's about 3 women who are connected by one man in this kaleidoscopic thriller. So this one says, Nick Radcliffe is a man of substance and good taste. He has a smile that could melt the coldest heart and a knack for putting others at ease. He's just what Nina Swan needed in her life after her husband's unexpected death. But to Nina's adult daughter, Ash, Nick seems too slick, too polished, too good to be true. Without telling her mother, Ash begins digging into Nick's past. What she finds is more unsettling. Martha is a florist living in a neighboring town with her infant daughter and her devoted husband, Alstair. But lately, Alstair has been traveling more and more frequently for work, disappearing for days at a time. When Martha questions him about his frequent absences, he always has a legitimate explanation. But Martha can't share the feeling that something isn't right. Nina, Martha, and Ash are on a collision course with a shocking truth that is far darker than anyone could have imagined. And all 3 are about to wish they had heeded the same warning. Don't let him in, but the past won't stay buried forever. This one sounds really cool. Like I said, I've read her books before. I can't remember the name of the book that came out last summer, but I read that one and really enjoyed it. So I will definitely be reading this one when it comes out as well. So that brings us to July, which is another great publishing month. And then another favorite author of mine is Ruth Ware, and her follow-up to The Woman in Cabin 10 is coming out on July 8th. Called The Woman in Suite 11. Even though I do enjoy Ruth Ware, I don't know if I'm going to read this one. I'm going to have this one on my radar. I'm going to listen to the reviews and see what the initial thoughts are, because I don't think that The Woman in Cabin 10 needed a sequel. I did love that book, and it is the book that got me reading Ruth Ware. But this one, it says it's about Lo Blacklock once again, and she returns to attend the opening of a luxury hotel only to find herself in a white-knuckled race across Europe. Apparently, she gets an invitation to attend the press opening of a luxury Swiss hotel owned by reclusive billionaire Marcus Liedman. And when she gets that, it's like an answer to a prayer. 3 years after the birth of her youngest child, Lo Blacklock is ready to reestablish her journalism career, but post-pandemic travel journalism is a very different landscape from the one she left 10 years ago. I don't like books about the pandemic. It's too soon. Even though this is post-pandemic, this has me nervous. I don't like reading books about that. But we'll see. It continues on to say, the chateau on the shores of Lake Geneva is everything Lo's ever dreamed of, and she hopes she can snag an interview with Marcus. Unfortunately, he proves to be even more difficult to pin down than his reputation suggests. When Lo gets a late-night call asking her to come by Marcus's hotel room, she agrees despite her own misgivings. She's greeted, however, by a woman claiming to be Marcus's mistress and in life or death jeopardy. What follows is a thrilling cat and mouse pursuit across Europe, forcing Lo to ask herself just how much she's willing to sacrifice to save this woman and if she can trust her. Again, this is on my radar. I don't know that I'm going to read it because I don't think The Woman in Cabin 10 needed a second book, and I'm not really interested, but I do like Ruth Ware's thrillers and her mysteries. I think she's a very good author, and I'm going to see. We'll see. We'll see. Also coming out on July 8th is These Summer Storms by Sarah MacLean, and I am really excited to read this one. I do have an art copy of this, but Sarah MacLean is a very well-known historical romance author, and this is her first contemporary romance novel, and I can't wait. Her historical romances are so good. The passion and the yearning, she writes that very well, and I think she's going to do a great job. This one says about a wealthy New England family's long overdue reckoning with hidden desires, destructive secrets, and one week that threatens to tear them apart. And it is a story about the transformative power of grief, love, and family. This luscious novel is at once deliciously clever and surprisingly tender, exploring past secrets, past truths, and futures forged in the wake of wild summer storms. So again, I do have an art copy. I absolutely will be reading this one. It has over 250 ratings so far on Goodreads with an average rating of 4.24. So again, the initial reviews are that it's pretty good. And as I said, I do love Sarah MacLean's historical romances, and I can't wait to read this one. Okay, also coming out on July 8th is Totally and Completely Fine by Alyssa Sussman, who wrote Funny You Should Ask. I did not read that one, but this one sounds interesting. It says, in her small Montana hometown, Lauren Parker has assumed a few different roles. Teenage hellraiser, sister of superstar Gabe Parker, and most recently, tragically widowed single mother. She's never cared much about labels or what people thought about her, but dealing with her grief has slowly revealed that she's become adrift in her own life. Then she meets handsome actor Ben Walsh on the set of her brother's new movie. They have instant chemistry, and Lauren realizes that it has been far too long since someone has really truly seen her. Her rebellious spirit spurs her to dive headfirst into her desire, but when a sexy encounter becomes something more, Lauren finds herself balancing old roles and new possibilities. So this one just sounds like it's going to be thought-provoking. It's going to talk about grief and love and starting over, and I generally like those books, so this one is going to be on my radar. And then the following week on July 15th, Lynn Painter has a new adult contemporary romance coming out called Made for Each Other. So apparently this is about Abby, who she needs a place to stay because there is an infestation at her building, and she is actually the housekeeper for sounds like a billionaire of some sort. And because she needs a place to stay and that man named Declan is out of town, she decides to crash at his place. But apparently it says Declan's parents tell him they met his girlfriend at his apartment. He is surprised to say the least, but it is nice to have them off his back about being single for a change. And then it says Declan finds out who Abby really is, and they apparently start to fake date, and he is basically going to provide everything she needs. What could go wrong? It's business, not pleasure, right? So it sounds like this one's going to have fake dating and forced proximity. So I have actually just read my very first Lynn Painter book. I read Better Than the Movies this past weekend, and I thought it was really cute. And I do have 2 other Lynn Painter books on my shelves to read, so I'm not going to rush out and buy this one. I do want to read those first because I've heard her adult romances are kind of iffy. So this is going to be one that I have on my radar, and I'm not 100% sure if I will rush out to buy it. I'm going to wait for those initial reviews to come in. Moving on to July 22nd, Holly Jackson, who is known for her YA mystery thrillers, has her first novel for adults called Not Quite Dead Yet. That one comes out on July 22nd. It says, in 7 days, Jet Mason will be dead. Jet is the daughter of one of the wealthiest families in Woodstock, Vermont. At 27 years old, she's still waiting for her life to begin, until Halloween night when Jet is violently attacked by an unseen intruder. She suffers a catastrophic head injury. The doctor is certain that within the week, the injury will trigger a deadly aneurysm. Jet has never thought of herself as having enemies, but now she looks at everyone in a new light. Her family, her former best friend turned sister-in-law, her ex-boyfriend. She has at most 7 days, and as her condition deteriorates, She has only her childhood friend, Billy, for help. But nevertheless, she absolutely is determined to finally finish something. Jet is going to solve her own murder. So, as you guys know, Holly Jackson wrote A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I have the first book in that series on my shelves to read, and I'm excited about this one. This one sounds really interesting just because as the protagonist has a set number of days to figure out who tried to kill her before she actually dies. And it just sounds really interesting, and I think this is going to be a book that I read in July. Also coming out on July 22nd is a contemporary romance called Friends to Lovers by Sally Blakely. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this is gonna have the Friends to Lovers trope. But I do have an art copy of this one through NetGalley, and I will absolutely be reading it in July because it sounds really, really cute. But it says, always each other's plus ones, but never each other's real dates. Two childhood best friends have one last summer wedding to fall in love in this dual narrative debut. Oh, it's a debut novel. I didn't know that. Okay. But Annabelle Monaghan did blurb this, and she said, left me feeling desperately romantic. Prepare for a book hangover. I loved it. I love that. And honestly, when I read that Annabelle Monaghan blurbed this, I absolutely requested it on NetGalley immediately because the other book that she blurbed that I read was Summer Fridays, and I love that book. So I feel like anytime Annabelle Monaghan says that she liked a book or has blurbed a book, I, for the most part, have enjoyed them. Okay, so this one says, best friend Joni and Ren have been inseparable since childhood, so when Joni moves across the country for her job, the two devise a creative way to stay in touch and be each other's plus one every year for wedding season, no matter what else is happening in their lives. It's a tradition that works until a line is crossed and the friendship they once thought was forever is ruined. Oh, okay, that's kind of giving me not book lovers, but people we meet on vacation vibes. And then it goes on to say, now Joni is back in her family's shared summer home for her sister's wedding, and she's determined to make the week perfect, even if it means faking a friendship with Ren and avoiding the truth of why they have to fake it in the first place. How hard can it be to pretend to be friends with the person who once knew you best? And finally, it says, perfect for fans of The Summer I Turned Pretty and People We Meet on Vacation, reunion romances, forced proximity, dual narratives, and single POV. This, again, this sounds adorable, and I think it's going to be a great summer romance, and I cannot wait to read the art copy I have in July. All right, next up, coming out the following week on July 29th is Megan Miranda's newest summer thriller called You Belong Here. This one says, a decades-old secret that drove a mother from her hometown now threatens her college-bound daughter in this twisty new thriller from New York Times bestselling author Megan Miranda. And then moving on, it says, Beckett Bowery never thought she'd return to Wyatt Valley, which is apparently in the Virginia mountains. Her roots there were strong. Beckett's parents taught at the college, and she never even imagined studying anywhere else until a tragedy her senior year ended with 2 local men dead and her roommate on the run, never to be seen again. For the last 2 decades, Beckett has done her best to keep her distance. Then her daughter Delilah secretly applies to Wyatt College and earns a full scholarship, and Beckett can only hope that her lingering fears are unfounded. But deep down, she knows that Wyatt Valley has a long memory and the past isn't the only dangerous thing in town. So I don't know if I'm going to read this one. It sounds interesting, but it's not pulling me. So I'm going to wait for the initial reactions on this one, and then if people are like, yes, this is really good, then I'll pick it up. But I have read from this author before. I read Daughter of Mine last summer, and I enjoyed that one. So this is going to be a we'll see book. And then moving on to the last book I want to talk about that's coming out in July. This one is a fantasy romance called Wrath of the Dragons. This is the second book in the Fear the Flames series by Olivia Rose Darling. Have I read Fear the Flames? No, I have not. I do have that on my TBR shelves to get to, but I'm putting this one out there because if I do read that one and I love it sometime between now and when this one comes out, then I will immediately pick this one out. But it says, the second novel in the thrilling and steamy romantic fantasy series following Fear the Flames. In this explosive sequel to... No, I'm actually not going to read this because I don't want to spoil anything because I have not read that first book. Just know that this is the second book in the Fear the Flames series. And then that's all I have for July. Moving on to August. And when I was preparing for this video, August originally was not a big publishing month, but as I was going through books and reading the synopsis of each one, I found quite a few that sound really, really good. Now, the first book that's coming out that I want to talk about on August 5th is the 4th book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent. It's called The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk. And I did not love the last book at all. I was really disappointed in that one. And after I read that one, I was kind of thinking I wasn't going to continue with the series because the first book, The Serpent and the Wings of the Night, first off, entire series is about vampires. Think Hunger Games, but with vampires. And that first book was like a 4 or a 5-star read. I really enjoyed it. And then the series has been slowly going downhill for me. So this is one right now I'm going to say I don't know that I'm going to. I'm kind of on the fence, but what's making me maybe want to read it is because it has about 316 ratings so far, and it has a 4.3 average rating, so it's pretty good. And then also too, that 3rd book in this series ended on quite the cliffhanger, so I don't know. I'm torn on this one. But this one is just a continuation of Mish. Mish was a side character in the first 2 books in the Crown of Nyaxia series, and with the last book, the 3rd book, she got her own POV book, and this 4th book is going to be the conclusion of Mish's story. And then in book 5 of Crowns of Nyaxia, we're going to follow the POV of another character. So this is a series made up of duology following different characters. But like I said, I enjoyed the very first book in the series, and it's just kind of gone downhill. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. We'll see. But another book that also comes out on August 5th is a book that sounds really, really good. And that is Full Bloom by Francesca Saratella. And this is just a general fiction book. It says, a woman's life is forever changed by a mysterious perfume in this stunning novel about ambition and untapped desire. Reeling from a breakup and overlooked at her job as a lighting designer, Iris Sundgren finds herself stuck, disconnected, and lonely in crowded New York City. Her wealthy friends are married and having babies while she's trying to pay for freezing her eggs, and the future she longs for feels out of reach. Then a mysterious neighbor, an older French woman, makes her a bespoke perfume. One spritz and a dab behind the ears, and Iris is a different woman. Suddenly, she is the object of every man's desire, and she can satisfy her own hungers for sex, love, and ambition. She can cast off her inhibitions and use her newfound lure to dazzle the high-profile client, attract a man who excites her like no other, and access all rarefied spaces that once excluded her. Under the perfume's heady spell, Iris embodies her maximum power, a flower fully bloomed. So this says it's a sensual and seductive novel set among the upper echelons of New York City. Full Bloom is at once a poignant story of becoming and a riveting mystery of who are you without your inhibitions? Does being wanted get what you want, or will you be devoured by desire? So again, this sounds like something that I will absolutely love. It has a little bit of magical realism with the magical perfume, and you know what? It has some great reviews so far. And then also too, this cover is gorgeous. So I don't know for sure if I'm gonna read this one, but it's absolutely on my radar just because it sounds so interesting and so unique. Also coming out on August 5th is the 2nd book in the Blonde Identity series by Allie Carter called The Blonde Who Came In From the Cold. This is following the sister of the main character in the first book called The Blonde Identity. And I did read that book. I thought it was fine. I think I gave it 3 stars. It was cute. It was funny. It was definitely kind of a rom-com, spy-esque type book. Oh, Allie Carter is also the author of a book that came out during the Christmas time season called The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. That one went a little viral, and it was cute. I did enjoy that one. And this is another one that is going to be a we'll see. I did read that first book, and it was fine. And I don't know. We're going to see on this one. It says 10 years ago, they joined the CIA. 6 years ago, he left the game. 5 years ago, they fell in love. 1 year ago, she ran out into the cold with absolutely no intention of ever coming back. And 2 minutes ago, they woke up bloody and bruised and handcuffed together in the dark. They don't know where they are, they don't know how they got there, and they have absolutely no idea who is after them or what this nameless, faceless villain wants. The only thing that's clear is after 10 years of covers and chemistries, secrets and lies, these 2 rival spies have been sucked into their greatest mission yet, and now they're going to have to team up to stay alive if they don't kill each other first. So again, This is going to be a we'll see book. And then coming out the next week on August 12th is Too Old for This by Samantha Downing. This is about a retired serial killer's quiet life being upended by an unexpected visitor. To protect her secret, there's only one option left. What's another murder? So here lately, I've been reading some cozy mysteries involving older characters, and I've really been enjoying this one. And I do have another Samantha Downing book. I have, gosh, what is that book called? I think it's called My Lovely Wife. I haven't read it yet, but I need to. I've heard it's really good. This one is definitely on my radar. I don't know if I'll absolutely get to it, but it sounds good. And then coming out on August 19th is another T. Kingfisher book called Hemlock and Silver. And I do want to read this one because it sounds like it's going to be a Snow White retelling. So with this author, I have read one other book. It was a Goose Girl retelling, and I really enjoyed that one. It was definitely more of a gothic fantasy, and I'm expecting similar vibes on this one. But it says, Hemlock and Silver is a dark reimagining of Snow White steeped in poison, intrigue, and treason of the most magical kind. Healer Anja regularly drinks poison, not to die, but to save, seeking cures for those everyone else has given up on. But a summons from the king interrupts her quiet, herb-obsessed life. Her daughter Snow is dying, and he hopes Anja's unorthodox methods can save her. Aided by a guard, a narcissistic cat, and a passion for the scientific method, Anja rushes to treat Snow, but nothing seems to work. That is until she finds a secret world hidden inside a magic mirror. The dark realm may hold the key to what is making Snow sick. This one just sounds really good, and the cover is gorgeous, and it looks like there's going to be a special edition with these lime green sprayed edges, so I cannot wait for this one. It comes out August 19th. And then on August 26th is Stacey Willingham's newest book called Forget Me Not. Now, I have read one other book by this author. I read A Flicker in the Dark, and I thought it was fine. I think I gave that one 3 stars. So this one says, 22 years ago, Claire Campbell's older sister Natalie disappeared shortly after her 18th birthday. Days later, her blood was found in a car. A man was arrested, and the case was swiftly closed. In the decades since, Claire has attempted to forget her traumatic past by moving to the city and climbing the ranks as an investigative journalist until an unexpected call from her father forces her to come back home and face it all anew. So the synopsis is pretty long, but it goes on to say that she ends up going back home for the summer. She gets a job at a vineyard and comes across an old diary written by one of the vineyard's owners. And apparently she starts reading something that sounds like a story of young rebellion and love, but it turns into something more sinister as it begins to describe details of various unsolved crimes. As the days stretch on, Claire finds herself becoming more and more secluded as she starts to obsess over the diary's contents, as well as the lingering feeling that her own sister's disappearance may be somehow tied to it all. So this one sounds interesting too, and I might read this one. I think I might. And then finally, also coming out on August 26th, and the very last book I want to talk about is The Book of Lost Hours by Haley Gelfuso. This one I'm on the fence about just because of this first line. For fans of The Ministry of Time and The Midnight Library. I did not like The Ministry of Time. Do not read that book. It is the worst time travel book I have ever read in my life. So that's the only reason why I'm a little torn about this one, just because if it's likening itself to a book I did not like, I'm worried that I'm not going to like this one. But it sounds really interesting. It just says it is a sweeping, unforgettable novel moving from pre-World War II Germany to Cold War era America to the mysterious time space, a library filled with books containing the memory of those who bore witness to history. And it looks like it's told in 2 different timelines. One is 1938 and one is 1965. And it just says it is a sweeping cinematic love story. This feat of imagination explores memory, time, and the links we will go to in order to protect the existence of those we love. And it doesn't have a lot of ratings so far. It only has 132. The average Goodreads rating is 4.23. And this is one I kind of want to read, but I was burned really bad on The Ministry of Time. So this is going to be one that I'm definitely going to wait until the initial reviews come out and see if it's a time travel book that I will enjoy. All right, my friends, so that's all I have for you today. I hope you were able to find some new books to add to your mental TBR for the summer, or you found some new authors. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. up. And if you can, in the comments, let me know what books you are eagerly anticipating this summer. For me, it's definitely Atmosphere. It's Ashley Poston's newest book, as well as Riley Sager's new book. All three of those, I cannot wait for them to come out. I'm gonna read them as soon as they're released, and I just can't wait. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.